Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm TX141, but you may call me Paul, welcoming you to another Ace Tanker gameplay for the realistic ground forces of War Thunder. In today's episode we shall be driving out on the domination iteration of the map Poland. Our chosen vehicle is our newly acquired Jagdtiger, the German Tier 5 battle rating 7.0 tank destroyer. This vehicle, as it is newly acquired, is in completely stock condition. This is my 6th game with the vehicle, and as you're going to see, it is an incredibly lazy one. I recorded this approximately 2.5 hours ago as of the time of me doing this commentary, and to be honest I just did not feel like engaging my opponents too much, playing the objective or really doing anything, but we still managed to creep along with an ace in the day. Now the reason for this video is not to consider this gameplay as much as it is to talk about you, the subscriber, the viewer of this video, even if you're not a subscriber interestingly enough, and more importantly you, the player of War Thunder. Why is that? Well, for ground forces in particular, a petition has just risen up, or we should really say it is a poll which could lead to a petition to the developers of the game, i.e. Gaijin. Now most of you who play ground forces on a regular basis will be aware, as far as I know it applies to both arcade and realistic mode, even though I predominantly spend my time in realistic mode, that when you go into a given matchup you are placed within a battle rating spread of 1.0. So let's just take our Jagdtiger here, a battle rating of 7.0. The spread means that I can be the top tier tank in a game where I will face lineups with a maximum battle rating of 6.0. So I could meet a player who has brought a Joseph Stalin 2, the base variant, into a game, and that would be their top tank. The opposite applies. I can be a battle rating 7.0 and be put into a battle rating 8.0 game to go up against the likes of, say, a M103 and a T10M. And to be honest, in stock configuration the APC or armour piercing cap shells of the Jagdtiger work very well within its battle rating contemporaries, but not very well when it goes up against the higher tier opponents, or indeed the higher battle rating opponents I should say, when the 207mm of penetration at a distance of a kilometre doesn't always quite cut it unless you get a shot on the side or rear of your opponent. But let us move away from that a little bit for now. This petition, or poll really, is to essentially scope the opinion of the player base and ask all of you whether you would like this 1.0 spread to be dropped to 0.7. As a result, the matchup would change if we use the example of the Jagdtiger again as follows. When you are the top tier tank, you'll be going up against lineups with a maximum battle rating in the lineup of 6.3. So that would be a lineup featuring a Panther F if it was a German side. With regards to the Americans, that would be an M26 Pershing. And I'm not quite sure about the Russians. I believe the T-34-100 Premium is battle rating 6.3. And if we take this to the other end of the scale, we would be the lowest battle rating vehicle. We'll be going into 7.7 matchups. So the German lineups would feature Leopard 1s. The Russian lineups would feature T-54 Model 1947s. And you get the picture from there, and the American lineup would feature the M47 pattern too. So that would be the dynamical change, that no longer would the Jagdtiger, for example, face the very powerful battle rating 8.0 heavy tanks that it can face at the moment, with heat shells in particular that can penetrate approximately 350 to 400mm of armour and thereby render the armour of the Jagdtiger rather useless around the casemate. And here we're going to wipe an M46 pattern off the face of the earth. Steady. Goodbye. And that is what I love about this vehicle after only playing 6 games with it. Hide it in plain sight, fire in the open range, and it can absolutely decimate those who it can penetrate. And in a way I actually feel a little bit nostalgic because I did about 6 months ago read a book by Otto Karius, or at least originally assisted by Otto Karius, the German tank commander, called Tigers in the Mud, which is about his combat service career, as we ricochet a 128mm shell off of the cannon barrel of an IS-2. Bit unfortunate, we took a guess and it didn't pay off. But we've already digressed. So coming back to this poll then, and why this video has been created. I had a suggestion from one of you, the subscribers, to make a note of this poll, and rather than just do a quick 10-second video to say please click the link in the description below to be taken to it, and the link is in the description below, and I'm also going to have a small notation appear in the top left corner of the screen throughout this video to link you to it. The importance of this video is to essentially outline my opinion of a player base, of a person in general, and how their opinion matters. Because I think that some people, when they play video games such as Call of Duty, War Thunder, World of Tanks, or any video game which has an online community, as we're about to re-engage an M26 Persian here who has fired at us and is going to try and move out the way of our shot, but we give ample lead here and say good night. Two in the bag. Is that when you play a video game in general, or you go to work, or you go to school, your opinion as an individual matters. Your ideas matter, because your ideas can bring change. And I believe a lot of people for a very long time in War Thunder's ground forces have wanted the battle rating spread to decline. And only now, with this poll, which could become a petition to the developers appearing, has it really gained a surge of enthusiasm, a surge of support. Excuse me, got quite a bit of wind tonight. And what this really says is that the community can try to bring change. And I reckon if the poll proves to be successful, i.e. that the majority vote yes, which it is looking at the moment, but please do not let that influence your vote. And we'll come on to that again shortly in a minute. That, as a result, this could bring a unique change to War Thunder, something that has been community led, and as a result has brought a response from the developers, which will make the game more enjoyable for the majority at least, and as a result encourage more people to take up ground forces, because despite its flaws, and there are many in my personal opinion, but we're not here to discuss those, ground forces, when it is going good, is an absolutely brilliant game mode, and enough to rival air battles. So that is why I encourage you strongly, if you have not already, to vote in this poll. Of course, if you do not play ground forces at all, I completely understand, and at the same time, whilst your view can be cast, it may be invalid by comparison because you haven't played it. Of course, I've given you some examples in this video. Well, I've given you one example in particular, and really the examples only apply as you go up the increase in tiers and battle ratings in my experience. At lower tiers, the battle rating 1.0 spread isn't as significant, but again, that's my personal judgment. You can use those examples to perhaps cast your vote, but then again, I would be careful about doing so, just because this could have ramifications in the long term, which may completely change the game mechanics, and indeed the game in general and the player base. So, many of you may be asking now, as we hide away from an enemy fighter flying about above, and I'm scared that the enemy team will bring out planes in order to snuff me out. The two players in particular I've already killed. As a number of times at this battle rating I've been molested, let's say, by the likes of an F8 F-1 Bearcat, and then brought to sudden death by an 82 Sky Raider. Not a nice experience, but one we have to live with as tankers on the ground with planes in the air. So some of you may be asking, what's my stance on this? Now I'd love to tell you, and I have cast my vote, but I'm not going to tell you. Why is that? Well, the problem is, as a YouTuber, my opinion and my persona can sway you. And I'm not going to say anything about anyone, but as we encroach towards 1,600 subscribers, there may be some of you within that number who, based on me saying to you yes or no, may feel inclined to vote that way because someone who you share an opinion with or enjoy viewing and feel is a reasonable person, let's say, has swayed you to vote that way. You feel inclined to do so because if he said yes, then I should say yes, and vice versa. It can happen, populist opinion. I believe that's the term. So as a result, I'm not going to tell you my opinion until this is all boiled over. Then if anyone wants to ask me, I will answer it in a TX Talks video. But also, in a way, my opinion isn't as valid, to be honest. And I will come on to that in a minute shortly. And again, that's going to be no indication of which way I voted. But I'll explain why my opinion is not really valid for this poll. But that is why I'm not going to tell you my opinion, and I just want to encourage you to provide your opinion and your vote on the poll. Because the more who vote, the more likely it is that the majority's opinion is going to be put forward, and as a result it is more likely that change will occur. And that is no reflection on the developers in my experience. I personally support Gaijin 110%. And before somebody says to me, well, that's because you get paid by them or you have an account with them, I do not have a press account. I have never been in contact with any of the developers of Gaijin. In fact, I've contacted one developer once to try and promote the material that I put out. I just did it off of a whim, and nothing really came out of it. I just did it to see whether perhaps I could get a little bit of support, but I have done all of this channel with the help of you guys and you guys alone, and put this all forward. So I'm not influenced in any way by Gaijin. Of course, they do have their YouTube policy about the material they can put, well, sorry, that we can put out in order to show their game. And of course, if we break that policy, as a result, our videos can be taken down, our accounts can be suspended, yada yada yada, all legal ramifications, which I hope never to break as we move forward and head towards the next set of bushes where we were originally. So as a result, I am not having my opinion held or changed by any external influence. I support Gaijin, I've supported them to now, and I will support them no matter what happens. That I can promise you. No matter how frustrated I get, I will never stop supporting them, because I love War Thunder. And for all the times I get angry, for all the times I get frustrated, I have about 10 brilliant ones. As unfortunately I ricochet off of the front of a base Joseph Stalin 2 variant as I try to judge them and they reverse out the way. But that's just coincidental timing. As we look around, we're going to pick up on an M18 Hellcat sitting right in front of us. And I don't think the M18 Hellcat has seen us. And we wipe our third foe off the face of the earth. So having talked about my opinion, where does this leave us now then? Well, that's an interesting question. Because either way you look at it, whatever comes out of this is going to be a reflection on the future of the game. If you carry on with a battle rating at 1.0, and this is my personal opinion, if you carry on with that, either people will adjust to it, as I personally have. I'm used to having to face, say, T-54s in my Tiger 2. Then you'll have those who stay, and those who go. If you change the battle rating spread to 0.7, it's a high likelihood more people will be inclined to play ground forces because they will feel the matchups are fairer. And this is what I would gauge from my experience, and indeed what I've seen on the forum, that the battle matchups would be fairer. You may have to wait a little bit longer, but then you'll be able to use tanks more effectively and go up against vehicles which technically the vehicles may have seen. A notable one of those is, as I already said, the Tiger 2 going up against T-54s. As far as I recall, it never happened in reality, and the likelihood of it happening, debatable at best. But that's again my opinion. And now, I said earlier that my opinion in a way on the poll, so my decision, isn't really valid. Now I'll outline that now. And I apologise if I'm hesitating. It's 26 degrees in my room right now and I am sweating like a pig. My opinion is not valid because of my intentions when I came into War Thunder, or at least into the ground forces mode. I came into ground forces to drive the tanks. I couldn't care what matchup I go into. Just the fact that I am driving a Jagdtiger right now in realistic mode is pretty damn awesome. I love this. Being able to look in binoculars mode, try and sight my targets, go into driver's view mode just because I can, because I've got a 128mm cannon that I need to take to the target. That for me is the experience. And what I came here for beyond that was to go into historical matchups. So for example, if I had to give you one, M4 A3 76mm Shermans going up against Tiger 2s. Now that is the experience that I want. When the Normandy event was on a little while back, when it was M10s, M18s and Shermans with 76mm or 75s, pardon me again for letting out wind, going up against Panthers and Jagdpanthers and Panzer IVHs if I remember correctly, that was the experience that I enjoyed, and I played that quite a few times using an M10, and I brought down some Jagdpanthers and some Panthers by flanking them from firing at a distance as they tried to move across the map. And that is something for me which means that I don't really show an opinion on battle rating spread. I don't really feel inclined to say yes it's great, yes it's bad. I just get on with it because I would prefer the historical matchups exactly as they were. Now again, this is not going to influence me yes or no towards a battle rating spread change, because either way you look at it you will still get unhistorical matchups, but I'm not going to go into all of that. And as a result, that's what I came into ground forces for. I came in for the events when you have, say, the opening of Operation Barbarossa, when you have Panzer IIIs and early Panzer IVs going up against T-34s. Because to me, if there is a handicap, you've got to overcome it. Because that's what people had to do in reality on the battlefield. And lives were lost in trying to overcome that handicap. But again, I'm going too much into this in my personal opinion, but you get where I'm coming from. And I try to gauge a shot onto A here because someone's capturing it. I can't quite find the target and I end up trying to take a shot at a tree. Or eventually I'm going to do so as I look around once again to make sure I'm not being flanked or I'm not missing something in plain sight. So that is why my opinion is not valid on this topic per se, because I'm not here for the battle rating matchups, I'm here for the historical matchups, for the more event-based matchups. And with British tanks coming in the near future, it is going to be pretty interesting to put Matildas, for example, up against Panzer IVs, etc. The matchups where the Matildas had to get quite close to the Panzer IVs historically in order to be able to use their 2-pounders to decent effect. But again, we digress. As you can see, my shot did not hit anything on A, and now with all 3 zones succumbing to the power of the enemy team, bar B, which is being captured by friendly AA, I actually tried to start moving forward, because I'm coming out of my shell a little bit and thinking to myself, hey, you know what, I could perhaps get an ace here. I've just got to be a little bit careful and creep forward. So, now that we've talked about the poll in great detail, and we've talked about my perspective, which I can't outline, we've talked about the reason why my opinion's technically not valid, even though my opinion is valid, that would contradict what I've originally said, but again, it's not valid in the context of the poll per se, and we talked about in general how one should always voice their concerns over a video game, or indeed not just video games, over anything in life, politics, religion. But again, we're not really here to talk about all that today. We're talking about a very small subject. Let me talk about the mentality that I have and what enables me to, in a way, not be too concerned by this matter. I only found out about the poll because one of you mentioned it to me. To be honest, when I play video games, I came from World of Tanks. And again, I'm bringing up the other game, which a lot of people seem to talk about in such a very detrimental time. But I've played the other game the other day, and I actually had quite a lot of fun, and you're going to see some videos of that, hopefully within the next week or two. Essentially, in World of Tanks, originally there was a tier spread of 5 when you got to tier 5, so you could face all the way up to tier 10 tanks, but you couldn't face any lower than tier 3. And I had to get used to that. I didn't walk away from the game, I just got on with it. Some games were absolutely horrific. Some days I couldn't even get a kill. I couldn't even, in a way, break even on credits. But I would find ways to do so, because I had to adapt. And then when the tier spread changed from 5 to ±2 practically permanently, again, I enjoyed that. I didn't ask for it, and I should have took a look on the forum and seen what the player community's thoughts were and put in my own view there. I didn't mind it, because I just thought to myself, okay, the difficulty curve has been dropped a little bit. This is going to be a slightly different experience, but it's a positive one. And now if I go back to World of Tanks and I really start to play it again, I would put forward the opinion, with the large number of players present, that we can go for a tier spread of ±1. Simply because now matchups to say tier 8 against tier 10, whilst they in a way can be achievable, i.e. tier 8's killing tier 10s, with the number of players around, do you really need those sort of matchups anymore? But again, that's the point of debate, that's not for this video, and we start to push towards B here. Now I'm creeping forward and I see a T-34 85, and I think to myself, there's no way you're bouncing this. Good night. And we tried to creep a little bit further forward, but I'm worried because an M36 earlier on killed our AA gun, which was based on B. So I'm thinking to myself, surely there's an M36 sitting around here. This is too easy. And so I start to creep a little bit closer to B here. And as we get a little bit closer, we keep looking around, checking to our left, or our port side, and then we start checking to our starboard. And we're wondering, is there anything around? And on our starboard's an M26 Pershing who's looking at us, wondering what to do, and that's our ace. It's a rather intimidating thing, this Jagdtiger, especially when an M26 comes along. And the only way the M26 would have penned, if it wasn't using APCR in my opinion, would have been trying to go through the glacial plate or the machine gun port on the lower front hull. And as we head towards B, we wouldn't have had time to capture it, so that's why I stayed out of it. And that's the end of the game. Let us take a look at the results. With our 5 kills and 2 assists, we were able to pick up 17,801 silver lions, as well as 3,328 research points, all going towards our work on the mouse. Whilst our opinion of the Jagdtiger is in its infancy, as we have only played approximately 6 games with it to date, and I say that as a non-quotable figure, I'm going to say now that it is most likely that when I pick up the armour-piercing cap ballistic cap shells, with their higher penetration at longer distances, by comparison with the standard default armour-piercing cap shells, that I will be playing the Jagdtiger in a very similar fashion to what you have seen here. The vehicle seems to work very well when it keeps its foes at arm's length, at distances of say 8 km to 1.5 km if not more, and when it is hidden in plain sight or behind a limited amount of foliage, as that way it does not draw too much attention to itself until its opponents are on the receiving end of its 128mm cannon. And boy, does this gun work well. But as I have already said, this video is less about the gameplay today and our experience with this vehicle, and more about you the viewer, you the subscriber, and you the gamer of War Thunder. If you play ground forces on a regular occasion or two, I really encourage you to take part in this poll. And again, I've provided a hyperlink in the top left corner of your screen throughout this video, and it will continue to appear in the description of this video as well. The reason being, if you cast your vote, your opinion has been heard, and that way you can continue to contribute to the future of War Thunder, and indeed make change happen. And as we can see for our playstyle, we're able to come 7th by comparison to the rest of our team. But again, our opinion of the Jagdtiger is in its early stages, and we might find with the upgraded ammunition, it is a completely different kind of beast. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been TX141, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel, and until next time, take care, and good luck on the battlefield!